Good morning, students. So today we are starting with chapter 14 of our NCRT book, and the name of the chapter is ecosystem. So what we are going to study in this chapter, ecosystem. First of all, we will discuss about ecosystem structure and function. How many types of ecosystems are there, and what are the structure and function of these ecosystem units. We will discuss about the different terms that are related with productivity. Then we are going to tell you in detail about the process of decomposition, what is the mechanism of energy flow in an ecosystem, and what are the various types of ecological parameters. This much is there in our syllabus. So let us see the introduction part. What you see in the introduction, that what is an ecosystem? An ecosystem can be considered as a functional unit of nature. You can say an ecosystem is a functional unit where the living organisms, they interact among each other, or there is an interaction among the living organism. Not only the living organism they interact with each other, but also they interact with the surrounding physical environments too. As you know that what is ecology? Ecology is the branch of biology that deals with the study of biotic and abiotic components. So here also the biotic components, they interact with the abiotic components. So children, ecosystem size varies from a very small unit to a larger unit. For example, if you give the example of a pond, then it can be considered as a small ecosystem. And if we are talking about a forest, then this forest is actually a large ecosystem, and sea is an example of a huge type of ecosystem. So here what you see, the ecologists, they also regard the biosphere as a global ecosystem units. So ecosystem may be as small as a pond and as big as a forest or a ocean. Now, how many types of ecosystem are there? So here we have two types of ecosystem. One is terrestrial ecosystem, another is known as aquatic ecosystem. So here the terrestrial ecosystem, it is further categorized as forest ecosystem, it may be grassland ecosystem, and it may be desert ecosystems. According to the type of the ecosystem, the species of flora as well as fauna, they also vary. So as you know that in a forest ecosystem, the dominant species are the tall trees, and in a grassland ecosystem, tall grasses are the dominant species, and in the desert ecosystem, the xerophytic species are there. They all constitutes the terrestrial ecosystem. And if we are talking about the aquatic ecosystem, then this aquatic ecosystem is further categorized. Maybe fresh water and it may be marine water. Means this is freshwater ecosystem or marine water ecosystem. So among the freshwater ecosystem, we have pond ecosystem, then lake ecosystem is there, wetland, it also acts as an ecosystem, then rivers and estuaries are there. So what are these estuaries? These estuaries are actually those regions in the oceans where the river water it get mixed with the, you can say, sea water. So as you know that river is a fresh source of water and ocean water is actually saline. So the meeting junction of both of these type of water constitutes a zone where both type of species are present. These may be freshwater ecosystem or these may be you can say saline water species. So we can also further categorize ecosystem as a natural ecosystem, or you can say the artificial ecosystem or the man-made ecosystem. As the name itself indicate, natural ecosystem may be terrestrial ecosystem, it may be aquatic ecosystem, and all its further categories. And among the man-made ecosystem, so this ecosystem is not existing in the nature as such. It is prepared by man, that's why it is called as an artificial or man-made ecosystem. So here we have two types of ecosystems. One is crop fields. For example, if you make necessary adjustment in some forest land and convert it into a crop field, then that acts as an artificial ecosystem. Then another thing is aquarium. अगर आपके घर में एक छोटा सा aquarium है, then that aquarium is also the example of a man-made ecosystem. Now here in this chapter, we are going to tell you about the structure of the ecosystem. And as you know that a ecosystem is a functional unit, so in every ecosystem, an input of energy is there, and this is known as productivity. Then the transfer of this energy takes place. So many food chains or food webs are there. So this food chains, they have different type of trophic levels, and so many food chains they are operating in a particular habitat, and a network of many food chains takes place. This is known as food web. Then nutrient cycling is there. So many nutrients they are recycled in different trophic levels of the ecosystem. Then output sources are there. For example, degradation of the decomposing matter of the ecosystem. And as a result, when the energy flow is there in the ecosystem, so as you know that when from one trophic level, the energy it passes to the next trophic level, there is 10% of energy which is lost. 10% of energy is passed to the respective trophic level, and some of the energy is lost in the form of heat. So this is known as energy losses. So here we will also tell you about the relationship that exists between different cycles, as well as what how a food chain or a food web they interact with each other. So see the first topic in your chapter, that is ecosystem structure and function. So here, as we know that in an environment, two type of components are there. Some are called abiotic components and some are called biotic components. As the name itself indicates, abiotic components means physical factors that are present in a habitat. It may be different type of climatic conditions, or it may be soil, water, whatever is present in the habitat. In by these are known as the abiotic factors. And biotic factors are the living organism. These may be the species of the flora as well as the fauna. So both of these abiotic and biotic factors they interact with each other, and these biotic and abiotic factors they work in an integrated manner, and they constitutes the ecosystem. So as you know that interaction of the biotic and abiotic components, finally they form the physical structure, and this is the characteristic of each ecosystem. So there is one term present over here which is known as species composition. तो अगर आप किसी इकोसिस्टम में हर एक स्पीशीज जो है उसको आइडेंटिफाई कर लेते हैं, एंड यू आल्सो काउंट द नंबर ऑफ प्लांट एंड एनिमल स्पीशीज that are present in an ecosystem, then this constitutes the species composition. Then as you know that the different species sometimes they exist in the ecosystem, are distributed in the ecosystem in a vertical fashion. So at different levels in a vertical fashion, different type of species are there. So this is known as stratification. For example, if we are talking about the forest ecosystem, so you know that at the top level of the forest, what is present? Tall trees are there, and then the below level from these tall trees we have shrubs, and below the shrubs we have herbs, and then on the bottom line we get the grasses. So what you see that there are some components of the ecosystem, and first component of any ecosystem is productivity. Then we have decomposition. As you know that the dead remains of plants and animals they further undergoes the process of decomposition, and the nutrients that are present in these dead remains they were finally released by the decomposers. So these decomposers they are also playing a significant role here. Then we have energy flow. Every ecosystem, there is a flow of energy from one trophic level to next trophic level. Then when the breakdown of the complex organic matter into simplest or matter takes place, then certain nutrients they are released. So the recycling of these nutrients it takes place between the different trophic levels, and finally these nutrients they get stored in the soil and they becomes available for the growth of the plant. So let us study what are the how these all the four components they are actually operating in an aquatic ecosystem. So here for aquatic ecosystem, we are given you the example of a small pond. So as you know that a pond it acts as a aquatic ecosystem, so it is a self-sustainable unit. And here what you see in the pond, shallow water is there, and shallow water here act as a abiotic component. And beside these water, some dissolved inorganic and organic substances, they are also present in the shallow water of the pond. And what is present at the bottom of the pond, that is rich soil. So as you know that first of all solar energy in the form of sunlight or solar radiations, They input into the ecosystem in the form of energy input. Then the cycle of temperature is there. During the different time periods, the temperature of this pond water, it sometimes goes on decreasing or increasing. Then we have the day length that also decide. Then we have other climatic conditions. So all of these, they come under the physical factors that are operating the or regulating the pond ecosystem. So what is present at the first trophic level of the pond ecosystem? So as we know that the first trophic level always constitute of autotrophs. So here also in the pond ecosystem, autotrophs are present, and these autotrophs are the phytoplanktons and algae, which are the chief producers here. And beside this, we have floating, submerged, or marine plants are also present. Then the second trophic level, as you know, it is occupied by the zooplanktons. So here the zooplanktons along with some free swimming or bottom dwelling fishes are present. And later on, as you know that when these autotrophic species and some of the consumers, when they die, their dead remains, they finally accumulate at the bottom layer of the ponds. So they are further consumed by the decomposers. So what are the decomposers here? So here the fungi and the bacteria are some of the flagellated organisms. They act as decomposers. They are generally residing at the bottom and they feed on the dead remains of plants and animals. So in this way, all the four components of the ecosystem, productivity, decomposition, energy flow, and nutrient cycling, they are actually uh, occurring, playing their role in the ecosystem. So what you see, the conclusion is this, that in an ecosystem, there is a unidirectional flow of energy from the lowest trophic level towards the higher trophic level. जब भी एनर्जी लोएस्ट ट्रॉफिक लेवल से हायर ट्रॉफिक लेवल की तरफ जाती है, तो as you know that from first trophic level to next trophic level, only 10% energy is there, and some of the energy is lost in the form of heat. Now proceeding with the next one, the next topic is productivity. So as the name itself indicate, in any of the ecosystem, which is actually the functional unit, solar energy, it exists in the form of solar radiation. So there is a term, and the term is primary production. What is primary production? So it can be defined as the amount of the biomass or organic matter that is produced per unit area in a particular time period by the plants during the process of photosynthesis. So as this is the amount of the biomass or organic matter, so it is expressed in the terms of weight, and the unit of weight here is gram meter square inverse. Or if it is expressed in the form of energy, then the unit is kilocalories meter square inverse. So rate of biomass production is actually productivity. But what you see, this productivity is further divided into gross primary productivity, or it may be the net primary productivity. So what is gross primary productivity? You can say in an ecosystem, the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis, it is called gross primary productivity. But that much amount of productivity is not 100% there in the ecosystem. Some amount of this gross primary productivity is utilized by plants in the form of in the process of respiration, and this is called as respiratory losses. So when you deduct these respiratory losses from the gross primary productivity, and what you get, that is known as the net primary productivity. So you must remember this net primary productivity is actually what? It is actually the available biomass that is now available for the consumption of the heterotrophs, because these heterotrophs, they are actually present at the second trophic levels. What come under these heterotrophs? This may be carnivores, this may be herbivores, carnivores, top carnivores, etc. And later they are the decomposers. Now there is a term secondary productivity. So when these consumers, or you can say heterotrophs, they use the net primary productivity, which is in the form of available biomass, then with the help of this, they utilized this biomass, and as a result, they form some new organic matter, and that are later consumed by the consumers. So this is known as the secondary productivity. Now, Primary productivity is actually depending upon certain important factors, that what kind of plant species that are present in a ecosystem or a particular area, and what kind of environmental factors that are operating here. Is there enough amount of nutrients in that ecosystem, or what kind of plants are growing? Are they terrestrial plant or some aquatic plants? So here is said that the amount of the productivity means primary productivity, it varies according to ecosystem. If we are talking about terrestrial ecosystem, then the amount of this primary productivity is more. But if we are talking about primary productivity of oceans, then it is comparatively less. So the whole biosphere, the annual net primary productivity is corresponds to 170 billion tons of the organic matter. But out of these, 70% of this comes from the terrestrial plant, and rest of the 55 billion tons, it actually comes from the oceans. So the amount of productivity, primary productivity from the oceans is low, because here the chief autotrophs or the phytoplanktons. And here in case of forest ecosystem, the chief producers actually are the tall trees with leaves having larger lamina or expanded lamina. Okay, so students, we are proceeding with the next topic. So here we are, our next topic is decomposition. So as the name itself indicate, it is a process that is concerned with the breakdown of complex organic matter into inorganic substances, which are in the form of nutrients. And these nutrients, they are further stored in the soil, as soil is the reserve house of nutrients, and they are further utilized by the plants. So here in the process of decomposition, what happened? As you know that during the process of photosynthesis, the plants, they produce complex organic substances such as carbohydrates. So these decomposes, when these plants die, so the dead remains of these plants, their breakdown takes place, and this complex organic matter later converts into the simplest inorganic substances like carbon dioxide, water, nutrients, and one process is involved here, and that is known as decomposition. So what you see that in the dead remains of the plant, what is actually present? So here some dry leaves are there, and some bark from the plants are there, and some fallen forest flowers are there. And among the dead remains of animal, dead bodies of animals are there. Then we have the fecal matter of the animals. All of these, they collectively form a term known as detritus. So for the process of decomposition, what is the raw material? So it is detritus, that is the dead remains of plants and animals. So here in the process of decomposition, following steps are involved. See on your screen, these may be fragmentation, these may be leaching, catabolism is there, humidification is there, and mineralization is there. So first of all, I want to tell you about detritivores. So as the name itself indicates, detritivores are those organisms which feed on detritus and do the breakdown of the detritus into smaller particles. So one example of these detritivores are earthworm. So when these detritivores, they break down the detritus and convert them into smaller particles or fragments, the step is called fragmentation. Then after the fragmentation, a process is there which is known as leaching. So here what happened? So among these inorganic matter, certain water soluble nutrients are there. So these water soluble nutrients, they finally settle down and they get accumulated in the deeper zones of the soil, and here they get precipitated in the form of unavailable salts. And bacteria and fungi, they also act as decomposers. They also degrade the detritus and they convert them into simple inorganic substances. So one process is there for the breakdown of this detritus by bacteria and fungi, and this is known as catabolism. So after the catabolism, we see a process known as humidification and mineralization. The name itself indicates humidification means the formation of humus. So what is humus? So humus is a dark color amorphous substance that is actually present in the soil, and one very important or significant feature related to humus is that this humus is resistant to microbial action. Microorganism cannot destroy it easily or degrade it easily. So the process of decomposition is very slow in this, you can say, humus matter. So as you know that this humus is also colloidal in nature. So here it acts as a reserve house of the nutrients, and nutrients is stored in the humus for a longer time because its decomposition rate is very less. So later on what happens, some of the microorganism they act on this humus and then they release the inorganic nutrients from here, this humus, and the process is called mineralization. Now, children, what is the important thing regarding the decomposition is the process of decomposition. It is actually a oxygen requiring process. Means it always takes place in the presence of oxygen. So, rate of decomposition actually depends upon few important features. And what are these? First is what kind of chemicals that are present in the detritus. And second is what are the climatic factors of that particular habitat. So here I am talking about climatic conditions and decide the decomposition rate of the detritus. So when you see the chemicals that are present in the detritus, if they are lignin or chitin, then you can say that this lignin and chitin, they are very such kind of chemicals which took a lot of time for their breakdown. So here the rate of decomposition is slow. But if the detritus it is rich in nitrogen, water soluble substances like sugar, then the rate of decomposition is fast. Also, temperature also control the rate of decomposition as well as soil moisture. So both of them they affect actually the microorganisms that are involved in the process of decomposition. So if warm and moist environment is there, then this favors the process of decomposition. Means if warm and moist environment is there, so the rate of decomposition is more. But if the temperature is low and oxygen is less, means anaerobiosis condition is there, then the rate of decomposition is less. So that's all in today's lecture, student. So all of you